down to that support level, and I think now's the time we're going to bounce. And unfortunately, this is one of the reasons we do those levels. And a few days ago we did say to pull back to this level, and that's more or less what we're getting now. So that is right now where the S&P is holding, and I think that's going to be the level. So wanted to just point that out. Now, the options paper today is there's just two things. HLT. We've seen this strength in a lot of these consumer-related names. Hilton Hotels just now they're buying I think the 26 calls. Take a look right here. The Jan 26 calls are bought in Hilton. This looks pretty interesting to me, and I think as long as the S&P holds up well, I think this one's going to break to new highs. I think a lot of these areas have been strong. Energy, chemicals, starting to see real strength emerging in the, we were talking about the fertilizer names. I think all of these are slowly coming to life. Some of these chemical names just continue to push higher, and I think we're going to continue to see more strength in this area. So I just want to point this out. Another chemical name, this is a small cap, but this company, Platform Specialty, they've had some good earnings and some other stuff. Another one of these companies, this sector is full of pricing power, turnaround stories, synergies, all those sort of things that would fit with an expanding economy. The one alert we did so far today was in Cheniere Energy, which I think is another one to think about. Here's a company, and this is one where I think, we were pretty accurate about this one. Back in the old days, we pretty much identified this sell-off from the very beginning in Cheniere. And now, though, it looks to really be holding. Look at this weekly chart. And, making these higher lows. Today they're buying the 47.5 calls expiring in January of 2018. So those are going to be 13 months out. And I got to say, a stock like this stock could go back to, it could go up a lot by then. It's a highly leveraged name. This company does the natural gas export terminals, and they might do the tankers. But basically, these guys are part of this whole idea of domestic energy. And, if that trade gets back together, this is going to be one of the ways people want to play it. This is one of these companies that they ran before the business was fully developed. But now that the energy idea is back, the domestic energy and all that thesis is coming back, a stock like Cheniere could be good. So those calls of 47.5, they're kind of expensive, but when you look at them, they're out in time. And I think a company like this, if the things that we're looking at right now in the economy continue to unfold, a stock like this is a pretty interesting one over the longer term. Cyclical growth. And if you look at it today, what do we get? We have ISM, better than expected. The Institute for Supply Management, Manufacturing, production, new orders are strong. Jobless claims were pretty bad, the worst since August 4th. But again, like I say, that has a lot of up and down, a lot of volatility in it. These are still really low readings. I thought it was stunning when we went under 260. So, a bump back up to 268. I think it's one day, it's 1 week. The European data was also pretty good. The jobless claims and it wasn't their ISM, it's their PMI, was better than expected. And the China PMI, I got these upside down. The China PMI was bad. I also, I continue to see problems with China. Like I had mentioned, the Australian data hasn't looked great. So I think right here, excuse me, this is not a very clear one to me. The things that seem to make sense to me, and we said this in our morning note today, we basically said that despite the bullish conditions, some parts of the SPX and NDX in particular, the NASDAQ, have been weak. Traders calls on highly liquid individual stocks in areas gaining strength. And I probably should have said that playing puts in weak names, things like Amazon and stuff. I kind of wish I had been more aggressive pushing the downside in this name because it really has been weak. And I think one of the things we see is when the sector rotation starts and you see like a major thematic shift like this, there's a lot of money that still needs to move. There's a lot of money stuck in a name like Amazon. And by the way, I think Apple here also, setting up for a move down to at least 104, if not 100. I think Apple right now is a pretty good, I'm going to add that to my list right now. I think Apple downside. I think year-end, this is one of those that you might be able to just look. I'm sure this company's going to have quarterly. You could probably just do the end of year, like 105 puts, I mean, look at these puts are not super expensive, and the liquidity is awesome in this name. So I mean, I would say a name like this, spreads are the way to go. I think something like, look at the 106, 104 put spread. That's basically going for what, 50 cents. 104 to me looks like I think that looks like a pretty strong probability at this point. This company made a lower high. The sector's rotten. It's stalling under the 50-day moving average. So I think this is, another way to be looking for things here. Chenier. All right, there's put buying in the XLK. The Jan 47 puts were bought XLK. Acadia is a name we haven't seen in a long time. Bullish three-way. Again, I think there's a great stock in a not so great sector. They're selling the 21 puts in January, buying the 27 calls, and selling the 32 calls. So it's a bullish three-way. Puts down here. Let's start over on this one. They're selling these 21 puts. So they're basically saying, hey, we think it'll hold those lows. And then they're basically targeting the upside. Like I said, this company is a good company. Last earnings were tremendous, but the sector's been pretty lousy. This might actually be targeting earnings or something because they are doing the January. No, it does have earnings later. But the last report was very strong with the numbers in the right direction. I tend to think, let the stock come back down to 21 and then, look for a strong 2017. That's kind of the way I'm thinking right now of some of the biotechs. Also, another name, like I said, I don't like tech, but I mean, this is a name that I think is getting down near some strong levels, which is Adobe. Not a big fan of it. It might keep going all the way down. But this is going to be one that this has been a really good company, and when the total just crushing beatdown stops in tech, this stock's going to snap back, and these options are extremely liquid as well in Adobe. So I think there's another name. There could be some opportunities in this. So I would just kind of mention this one to keep on your list as well. There's a bullish call roll in Occidental Petroleum, OXY. We see the December 72.5 calls roll to the 75 calls in March. Those 75 calls do look pretty good. I think the stock's going to go back up to 78, so this one's probably worth doing an alert on. I just want to make sure there's no event coming up in this. This is probably a good one. I like Occidental here. Let me add that to the summary sheet. OXY. All right. There's also a call roll in General Dynamics, GD, which rolled December 180 calls to the Jan 185s. This is the same strategy we had kind of employed with the banks a while back. We said, you know what, you want to go out in time, down in delta, and that's what they did in these. They went from the ones that are closer to the money, expiring soon, those 180s, and they rolled to the 185s in this name. Makes a lot of sense to me. PH, Parker Hannifin. This is some kind of energy name. It's some kind of oil servicing related company, I think. Oh, no, I'm sorry. This is just an industrial. They're rolling short calls in this one. So they bought back the December 145s against open interest, so we know that those calls had previously been sold. Wait a second, December. You can see here on the Options House platform the 145 calls. These were bought, volumes below open interest. Well, at least the actual transaction size, I think it was 1,400 contracts in that specific contract. These were purchased, and then these were sold at the 150 line. So this is someone who's just long the stock, rolling the calls higher, just kind of taking money as it goes. By doing that, if we actually take a look at it really quick, you can see that they would have paid. Actually, let's look over on. You can see right here. See, they basically paid nothing because they brought in about they paid about $2. They brought in about $1.85. Take a look over here on the activity log at PH. I think it's interesting to realize what they did was they're taking time value and they're basically just turning time into money. So basically what they did by rolling these calls forward in time, they raised their target price by $5. And in return for taking that, getting that $5, they took the risk of remaining committed to the name for an additional month. So basically they're backstopping it and then providing someone else the opportunity to get long at 145. In return for providing that opportunity, they're getting paid. And they're taking that time value and they're turning it into a higher exit price on the stock. So it's the kind of stuff we see all the time, but I do think it's pretty interesting. And no, I'm sorry, they're actually providing the right for someone to sell it at 150 in January. Advanced Micro, we said this was going to be a good end-of-year window dressing story, and I think it was right at the – look, this stock I think is still going to be strong. I think that this weakness in tech, I don't think it's going to last. Look, I think Facebook, Apple, these stocks are not going to do well into year-end. Amazon, they're not going to go straight down. But the names that have been strong, these chip names, I don't think these guys are done. So I think you let this company give us 8. That's the level we're looking for on this one. $8 on AMD. It's going to be a nice entry. Same thing with AMAT. I mean, AMAT has just been an awesome stock. And, here it is just right around this level from like October. I mean, it might go a little lower, but, man, that's looking good. I got to say, these are the ones when people are jumping out of windows and slitting their wrists, that's when you want to be interested. And I think there's a lot of fear in names that have some very good momentum. The 50-day moving average in AMAT is rising. The 100 is rising. The 200 is rising. You have a very strong momentum story. You have a nice, cup and handle pattern here. It might go a little bit lower, but this is, I think, the place right now where this stock's going to be a buy. I think AMAT and then in NVIDIA, AMD, this one's going to, the 8.5 puts were bought. So like I said, I think this one needs to go down a little bit lower. I know you're going to ask about NVIDIA, so I'm just going to go ahead and answer the question. I think the opportunity to buy this one has probably already passed. This is the sort of thing when you want to just like come in early and just, a name of this stature. This is probably going to, for a short-term day trade, this is probably going to whip higher into the close, I think. I think there's a lot of bullish momentum in this stock. So I think NVIDIA here is probably going to see a strong rally into the close. The one thing, though, is it might not go back to new highs. I mean, 95, that might be it. But, it's at 88 now, so that could be fun. There's put selling in Dow Chemical, which I'm long. We've been recommending Dow Chemical. Yesterday, I took those calls. I was in the 55s of December, which just blitzed higher. It was awesome. So I sold those yesterday with the stock near the high, and I rolled to the Jan 60s because I didn't want to be too strong on Delta. I think this is going to be one of those stocks that's going to just levitate higher into year-end. This will be a strong breakout to me. And I think these are some of the names. Like I said, the thesis of cyclical strength that we have been citing really ever since the morning after the election. We saw it then, and we said we're going to see a big rotation into industrials, into inflationary stocks, steel makers, all of that. This trend is continuing. And I think a name like Dow Chemical, this is a name that just broke out, and I think we're going to see more upside in a name like this. Look, if we were printing like 1% GDP, I wouldn't be saying this. I also, I just want to mention, I said this yesterday, but in my morning note today, I did mention the fact that, we basically have the ability of domestic producers to make money at lower levels. Will actually, this is now a catalyst for the overall economy. The United States, in the lifetime of most people watching this webinar, the United States has not been really a significant oil exporter or anything. I don't know if we're going to become a real exporter. The thing is, we've run a deficit on oil, I think since the late 60s, maybe the mid-60s. If you look at oil exports in production in the 1960s, it like went upside down. The beginning of the 60s, we were like a huge, we didn't import a lot. By the end of the 60s, the Saudis really came on the scene. But the key point in all of this is we have been, we have been accustomed to thinking that higher oil is bad for the economy, expensive gasoline, and it's not going to be true now. We're going to see as expensive gasoline is going to mean that these guys can survive at $40, and if they survive at $40, it means they're spending money on industrial stuff, capital equipment. It's going to be a positive for all these aspects of the economy. I said it yesterday, but I just felt the need to repeat it, that I think that this is a different ball game, and a lot of the rules that were in place for most of the 20th century that we think of, we're in a different era now economically. We're in a different kind of American economy. The fact that we were able to stay out of recession, even with mortgages going down last few decades, and I saw that now they might even take away the mortgage interest expensive for your homeowners. So that's something else that on your income tax. So things are just changing here, and we're going to see things that you wouldn't normally expect. Williams, WMB, pipeline stock, they are selling the May 35 calls. I'm not sure what to make of the pipelines here. I'll be honest. These are weird companies. They're probably going to be bullish with the rest of domestic energy, but they are also dividend plays, and like I said, I just don't know about these dividend plays. I still think the bond yields have more upside here. I think that there's really, look, this level up here in the 30-year 3.25, we're about 15 basis points away. This level, I think we're going to go up, and I'm not saying it's a straight shot, but I don't think you even want to think about being long anything fixed income until we get up and really hold that level. And that level might not even hold, because when you really think about it, markets are not rational. It's like they never should have gone as low as they did, and then they often over-adjust too far. So, we could see just a steady move higher in interest rates in terms of the yield curve. And if that happens, these life insurers, these financials are going to just crush it on the income and the margin. All right, there is call selling in TAP, which is Molson Coors. Haven't looked at it. I know we like this one, recently down there. We said it was going to bounce. It bounced a little, and then boom, there it is again, back to the downside. I'm sorry. I wish I could answer some of your questions, but I actually had to jump to my meeting. I did want to just mention that it is interesting to look at some of the groups today on Research Labs. I'm going to just very quickly do that. We basically have continued strength in these different energy related things. But what I think is interesting, if we look, these auto sales today, Ford and GM were terrific. The auto related things. There's a lot of auto related stuff on Research Lab. You have the tires, you have auto part makers, you have auto part retailers, you have auto retailers. You actually have the companies that are the car dealerships. Those are on Research Lab. So I wanted to say there's a lot here, and GM. Obviously, these automakers, if these guys come back, that's another leg in that industrial story that could be something. The railroad suppliers just continue to just slam higher. I think all these things are pretty interesting. I continue to think that Century Aluminum is going to be an interesting one sooner rather than later. Just holding this level, the aluminum names are strong today, but we're seeing also the snowmobiles are just kind of standing out today. So it is interesting. I saw them here. Where'd they go? Snowmobiles. I'm not sure if there's news today, but Polaris is one that we've been very bullish on this webinar, on and off, and I think this name is going to continue higher. So don't forget, this is a company that actually has certain exposures to domestic energy production because that's their clients. They have this nice double bottom at 70. It's consumer discretionary. It's kind of like the motorhomes, which are probably, look in the last month at these motorhome stocks. These have been very strong. Where'd they go? Well, I thought they were up even more in the last month. But these guys like Winnebago, and the other ones, Thor Industries, have just been on fire. These are expensive. One of you guys was recently mentioning, Harley Davidson. All these expensive consumer discretionary stocks, that's where people are going to be dropping money. And so I do think it's interesting. I was also looking at Home Depot again today. We had calls on that one yesterday. I'm not sure to think of it here, but this is, I'm not sure about this one. I was just watching it earlier, and I wanted to just kind of come back and check it, but I don't really have anything super clear to say on it. But I do think that we're going to continue to see weakness in most things involving tech. And some of these Chinese names I think are probably going to remain weak as well. The Chinese internet stocks. Another one that I just, Santander, the Spanish bank. This company is just slowly turning higher. We have the Italian referendum coming up on Sunday. It seems to me, and I do think this. I think that right now with Italy, in the end, it's going to end up like Puerto Rico. It's going to be bad, but it's going to be like, well, not that bad. And I'm a firm believer, and this is a philosophical, argument people have had. They say a credit crisis causes a recession. I don't believe that. A credit crisis often corresponds to a recession because when there's too much debt, then those people who are highly levered start dropping, and then you basically have a credit crisis simultaneous with a recession. But this idea that Italy is going to bring down the whole system, I don't believe it. I mean, if we're talking about Italy defaulting, that's something that's pretty strong. But I mean, it's not that bad yet. And I think right now, Italy's just going to be ring fenced like Greece. Maybe I don't know what's going to happen there. But even if this referendum goes negative, I don't. Some weakness, but I don't think it has that ability at this point in time when we're seeing the strength in the domestic economy and everything else. So it seems to me right now, I think these polls in Italy are pretty clear that Renzi's going to lose, and it seems to me that the market is okay with that now. So I just want to point that out. This is coming up. I'm not saying it makes sense to be long something like Italy, but a stock like Santander that's just kind of slowly turning here, this one could be one to look at. So. Hope everyone has a great and profitable end of trading day. Remember, I think AMAT here, it's looking interesting to me, maybe a little bit under 30, but this will be one to watch. All right, folks. So I have to cut it short. Tomorrow we'll be back and same as usual. Hope everyone has a great and profitable end of the trading day. Take care. Thanks.